Good morning. Welcome to First Unitarian Church of Wilmington, to our hybrid in-person and streaming Unitarian Universalist service this morning. We cannot tell you how happy we are to see at least a few of you here this morning, in person, in our sanctuary, and I know your faces are smiling behind your masks. Just a gentle reminder to keep your mask up and speak and sing quietly behind your mask as we go through the service. Afterwards, we ask that you not congregate in the back of the church, but go outside with each other, hopefully it won't be raining, and use the lawn area to the left to congregate and celebrate seeing each other. My name is Helen Foss, and I'm delighted to welcome you in my role as worship associate today. Welcome to you, no matter the hue of your skin or the origin of your ethnicity. Welcome no matter whom you love or wherever you are on your spiritual journey. You are welcome here. If you're new to First Unitarian Church, I invite you to check out the website, firstuuwilm.org, to learn more about us and to sign up for our e-news newsletter. Again, welcome this morning to our service. Today, Reverend Larry will be focusing on this month's theme of renewing faith, not equating faith with specific beliefs, but as he says, faith is beyond belief. He has invited our worship associates this month to briefly share our understanding of faith and what it means to us. This being the first Sunday of the month, I get to go first. Well, as UUs, we do not have a creed or a set of defined religious beliefs, but we do have 7 principles and a set of values. And one of the definitions of faith is a strongly held belief. My faith plays out in my embracing the value of my fellow humans, in kindness and respect, finding ways to deeply listen to each other, and in supporting ways for people in need to secure help. I persist in my hopes and faith that such kindness and concern is somewhere hardwired into each of us, somewhere to be inspired or unlocked. My faith charges me to continually search for truth and meaning, to wrestle freely with truth and meaning as they evolve, challenging me to be humble and open to new insights. My faith is reflected in my commitment to the care of our world, our interconnectedness, and the need to protect our environment and to savor with continued amazement at the beauty in nature, and to take my very small steps to reduce my impact on the world, from switching off lights to controlling the length of time I shower, to minimizing the amount of beef we eat. I look forward this morning to Reverend Larry's take on how faith is beyond belief to stretch my thinking. Now, let us prepare ourselves in body and mind for our worship together.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you, Helen, for those reflections on what faith means to you. I'm the Reverend Larry Piers, minister at First Unitarian Church of Wilmington, and I'm containing my excitement and enthusiasm that I have people that are joining us online and people that are in the building. Look how contained my enthusiasm is. It's great to see us meet in both of these ways after a break. So thanks for being here and joining us this morning. The call to worship are these words. So far as I can see, all the great leaders and the great exemplars of religion possessed faith in life's essence, in its hidden meaning, in its moral claim, and rightness of its inner spiritual guidance. And by this, the great ones live their lives, and so must we. In that conviction, let us join together in worship.
If you have a chalice at home, I invite you to join me by lighting it while I say these words by Deborah Falk. A chalice lit in our midst is a symbol of our liberal faith. A faith built on the foundation of freedom, reason, and tolerance. A faith sustained by acts of kindness and justice. A faith that visions a world flourishing with equality for all her people. A faith that demands the living out of goodness. A faith that requires thoughtfulness. A faith of wholeness. This tiny flame is the symbol of the spark of all of this within each of us.
Streams of mercy
Please join me now in affirming our mission. First Unitarian Church of Wilmington is a beloved community that nourishes minds and spirits, fights injustice, and transforms the world through loving action.
The story I am sharing today is the loaves and fishes. It comes from our Jewish and Christian source, specifically from the Christian scriptures. Some people think this story means Jesus created a miracle or that God worked magic through Jesus. Others think this story means something else. I wonder what you think happened. Did a miracle occur? One day, Jesus and his disciples gathered far out in the countryside. Word quickly spread in towns, villages, and the surrounding areas that Jesus was nearby. People heard that Jesus was a wonderful storyteller and an amazing teacher, so they traveled to the countryside to see him for themselves. Soon, thousands of people gathered around Jesus, and he spent the day teaching them about love, kindness, and caring for one another. As evening came, Jesus' disciples gathered around Jesus and said, "It is getting late. Everyone is getting hungry, but how will we feed so many people?" Just then, a young child walked by with a basket containing 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. The child said they were willing to share the food and handed the basket to Jesus. Then Jesus asked his disciples to go out into the crowd and ask everyone to sit down so they could enjoy a meal together. When everyone was seated, Jesus gave thanks for the bread and the fish, and the meal they were all going to enjoy. Then he took some food and passed the basket to another person in the crowd. After a joyous meal, everyone was full and content. Jesus asked his disciples to gather up any extra food so it wouldn't go to waste. The disciples were amazed because not only had everyone eaten, but the leftovers filled 12 baskets. What do you think? Did a miracle happen? Maybe Jesus somehow miraculously transformed 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish into a much larger meal, enough for thousands. Or maybe through his teachings about love, kindness, and caring for one another, he miraculously inspired his disciples and the large crowd of people to share. Here is what one Unitarian Universalist minister, Reverend Colin Bosson, said. When Jesus brought out the loaves and fishes, blessed the food, and offered to share, even though it was not enough, he convinced everyone else present to share with the group what they each had. Some people had fruit in their pockets, and Jesus' generosity moved them to share their fruit. Others had a loaf of bread tucked away in their bag, and when everyone else shared, they too pitched in. In this way, the entire community created a great miracle. And because they shared, everyone had not only enough, but more than they needed. There was even food left over. I wonder if you think a miracle occurred that day.
Let us join together now in a time of prayerful meditation. I've adapted this meditation from one composed recently by my colleague and friend, Reverend Vanessa Southern, who is minister at the First Unitarian Church in San Francisco. She's entitled it, A Prayer for Today. Spirit of life, the one beyond naming and knowing, mystery beyond understanding, what complicated times we live in still. Masks lifting off faces, mouths and noses and smiles revealed in full sunlight. Travel bans lifting and families reuniting and plans being made and dinner parties resuming. And most of all, fear and weariness just beginning to subside, or the hope of its receding back like a tide that returns forever to the ocean of time. And then war. A demagogue bored too long by the ravages of pandemic. An ego in need of frontline drama, the exercise of power, insensate to the pain of another's death or suffering, to all save his own need for a strange and evil surfeit. Just when our braving spirits could release and begin again, perhaps, to trust. Just when we could ask joy to rejoin the party, no protective gear necessary. This. Help us. Whatever we call out to in the dark nights or uncertain times, in despair or frustration, or wondering again about the future we create and will inherit. Help us to know how to move forward through this time in ways that are wise and compassionate and courageous. Help us live without unnecessary loss. Someday making calculations based only on the holiness of life and of one another. In the spirit of invitation, let us take a time during this shared silence to provide space for ourselves and for each other to hear what needs to be heard and held in this hour. Let's join together in a shared silence. We hold in our collective hearts our shared concern for our world. Let's take a moment now to also, in the quiet of our own hearts, at home or in this sanctuary, to speak as well whatever joys we may be holding whatever care or concern we might have for another, even ourselves. Let us speak those concerns now into this room or write them in the chat. May all those names that were spoken, those written in the chat, those unspoken, find peace and healing this day. Amen.
This is my song, O God of all the nations, a song of peace for lands afar and wide. This is my home, the country where my heart is. Here are my hopes, my dreams, my holy shrine. But other hearts in other lands are beating, with hopes and dreams as true and high as mine. My country's skies are bluer than the ocean, and sunlight beams on clover leaf and vine. But other lands have sunlight too and clover, and skies are everywhere as blue as mine. Oh, hear my song, thou God of all the nations, a song of peace for their land and for mine.
Want to make a quick shout out to Richard Speck, who did all the technology to put that virtual choir together for us. Thank you, Richard. This morning we have a responsive reading that Reverend Larry found that perfect for today. I will read the lead, and then the congregation with Larry with you will do the response that I think is going to show up here on the screen. So here we go. Is it going to show up? Is it there? Okay.
Here we go.
Here we go. Some beliefs are like walled gardens. They encourage exclusiveness and the feeling of being especially privileged.
Other beliefs are expansive and lead the way into wider and deeper sympathies.
Some beliefs are like shadows, clouding our days and fears of unknown calamities.
Other beliefs are like sunshine, blessing us with the warmth of happiness.
Some beliefs are divisive, separating saved from unsaved, friends from enemies.
Other beliefs are bonds in a world community where sincere differences beautify the pattern.
Some beliefs are like blinders, shutting off the power to choose one's own direction.
Other beliefs are like gateways, opening wide vistas for exploration.
Some beliefs weaken a person's selfhood. They blight the growth of resourcefulness.
Other beliefs nurture self-confidence and enrich the feeling of personal worth.
Some beliefs are rigid, like the body of death, impotent in a changing world.
Other beliefs are pliable, like young sapling, ever growing with the upward thrust of life. Preaching would be such a cinch if world events would not intervene. I could not anticipate that I would be standing before you this morning with parts of our world seeming to be in such turmoil, such agony, and such fear. It has all been happening so fast. I even tried to resist looking at the newspaper this morning, afraid to learn what has happened overnight, and wondering if I could speak about it. Indeed, the repercussions of one man's autocratic actions have been rippling out to impact so many lives, economies, freedoms, and futures, and it continues to ripple. It's hard to really take it all in. Yet because we are a religion that prides itself as being this world-oriented, we have to dare to stand alongside of one another and look at it. Look at what's happening in our world. Really, how could I stand before you this morning with integrity without acknowledging this vulnerable, stunning moment of history that we are in? We need not hold all of this alone. So I feel a quiet gratitude this morning, this very morning, that we could be together in this sanctuary and online, so that we could hold all of this in our collective soul together. It feels like such an understatement to say that we are in a time of crisis when both danger and opportunity are present. Sure, there's already been so much real danger. And at this moment, there is still some sense of tangible opportunity that something could shift eventually. I'm hoping. With you at my side, I dare to look at the dangers of this moment. And with you at my side, I dare to hold on to some tangible hope. So my entryway into this topic of faith is dramatically different than I had imagined it when I first proposed the topic. The events of this past week cannot be evaded and could hold some unsuspected lessons for us about faith. Perhaps different than I would have otherwise said to you before these real life events interrupted my first thoughts on the topic. So I'll present snapshots that are forming my thoughts in this moment. The first snapshot is this image that's haunted me this past week. There she was, an 8-year-old girl, escaping with her family from Ukraine, clutching her stuffed animal tiger as she waited to board a train away from her home towards Poland, and from there to places yet unknown. Then she showed the reporter that in her hand she was also holding gravel from the home that her family had to leave because of relentless bombings. She was taking the gravel with her. To us, it would look like just ordinary stones, worthless. But to her, this gravel was linking her to fond memories that she hoped would never be forgotten. To her, these were precious stones, connecting her to a home that she may never see again. The road ahead for her and her family was uncertain, but these stones, they were real. She could hold on to them tightly. So I ask us to pause for a moment. I'm not asking these questions rhetorically. I mean to be asking you the questions so we can think together about them right now, to take an actual pause and reflect upon these questions together. What would you hold on to in a time of crisis? What would you cling to hold you steady and to keep you connected, to give you some glimmer of hope? Whatever way we have answered the questions, I suspect give us some sense of what it is that we cherish, what it is that we hold dear, but also what holds us. That is one way to understand faith. Some of us may find so-called religious words to express that sense of what holds us. Others of us might find other words. But we need not be in a time of crisis to reflect on such questions. So that's one snapshot that's been haunting me this week of that girl with that handful of gravel. And another snapshot are ones that we've all seen, I'm sure, images of homes destroyed, people huddled in subways and basements as bomb shelters, families, sometimes just women and children, while many of the fathers stayed to fight, lines of people pulling suitcases to catch a train or to cross a border to whatever safety would look like. This is what has torn at my heart this week, and I suspect for many of us as well. I suspect many of us have shared that particular edge with the people of Ukraine this week, that edge where fear and courage meet. Fearful about what will happen next, while still admiring the courage to take a stand for their own self-determination, their own inherent worth, and a stand for democracy. While standing on the edge of fear and courage, We could be propelled in either direction. So I ask these, what I consider faith-related questions of us. What makes the difference? Which direction you take? What moves you more towards fear? What moves you more towards courage? And I suspect for many of us, it's a combination of both fear and courage that propels us forward. I know that for me, sometimes when my fear is strong enough, I find the courage to act and to move forward. And I know that courage would not be courage if I did not also feel fear alongside of it. Indeed, one ancient writer has said that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So I would add that to our repertoire of understandings of faith. I'm certain that in our own lives, indeed, this has been true for us, that we have moved forward, recognizing that we could only move forward with a faith that is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not yet seen. In addition to these images for this week that have haunted me, I've also found these lines resounding in me this week. For nothing is fixed forever, and forever it is not fixed. I ventured to discover the forgotten source of this verse, and I was reminded that it's from the James Baldwin poem, For Nothing is Fixed. I want to offer this James Baldwin poem to us this morning. See what it says to you. See what whispers it gives to you in your own heart and soul this morning. See what it reminds you of in terms of your own touchstones of faith, of hope. For nothing is fixed. Forever, it is not fixed. The earth is always shifting. The light is always changing. The sea does not cease to grind down rock. Generations do not cease to be born. And we are responsible to them because we are the only witnesses they have. The sea rises, the light fails, lovers cling to each other, and children cling to us. The moment we cease to hold each other, the moment we break faith with one another, the sea engulfs us and the light goes out. So the poem acknowledges what we know but don't often remember, that we're always living in the midst of change. Forever it is not fixed. And at the same time, we're always living in the midst of a certainty within that change. Generations do not cease to be born. When we are responsible to them because we are the only witnesses they have. The sea rises, the light fails, lovers cling to each other, and children cling to us. Those are certainties. And as it happens in life, sometimes, somewhere between what is ever-changing and what is certainly dependable is where we live, between what is always changing and between what is dependable. We live our days. I didn't realize until I read the whole poem that this poem offers some insights about faith. Baldwin discloses the moment we cease to hold each other, the moment we break faith with one another, the sea engulfs us and the light goes out. A faith that he presents is a kind of faith that requires actual participation in what I would call faithing, that requests that we do something, not just sit there, but that we hold each other and that we not break faith with one another, otherwise the light would go out. Let me offer one more snapshot, okay? Okay. Alongside the undeniably painful images of destruction, despair, and death, there has been those equally undeniable images of groups of people attempting to block tanks with their bodies, with a man kneeling in front of a tank, of a grandmother scolding the young Russian soldiers. Have you seen some of those images as well? These were not just desperate actions. Could these also be actions of faith, a faithful resistance to what is wrong, immoral, and evil? Could it be that faith is also an active resistance to evil? Resistance to the purposeful diminishment of life? Let's recognize that what's happening in Ukraine, however, my friends, is not so distant, not so isolated from what's happening in many places around the world right now. There is, as many of us know, an assertion of autocratic rule over democratically elected governments. There is a rise of incendiary speech that seems to provide a rationale for the relentless attacks on a targeted group. A recent report from Freedom House declared that there is a global expansion of authoritarian rule, that the global freedom faces a dire threat, and around the world, the enemies of liberal democracy, a form of self-government in which human rights are recognized and every individual is entitled to equal treatment under the law, are accelerating their attacks. We must awaken to this moment, to the stark realization that what's happening is destructive and dramatic ways in Ukraine is also happening in much quieter ways elsewhere. Lorian Alexander writes, and as I read this, I want you to place your own observations next to hers and ask yourself, where am I noticing this as well? She writes, scholars tell us that democracies no longer end with a bang, like revolution or military coup, but with a whimper. The slow, steady weakening of critical institutions like the judiciary and the press, the relentless repetition of lies until they become accepted as truth, the scapegoating of the other, and labeling those who protest as enemies of the state. We see it happening before our eyes in unexpected places, in places not too far from us, don't we? And such practices are what contribute to the death of democracy. This dramatic trend towards authoritarianism in our world is based on a dramatically different set of beliefs about human nature, human agency, and the use of power than those beliefs that underlie democracy. And so I would agree with Sophia Lyon-Fahs that it matters what we believe. Some beliefs, as she says, are like blinders shutting off the power to choose one's own direction. And other beliefs are like gateways opening wide vistas for exploration. So our religious task at this moment is not to be bystanders, but to participate in such a way that in whatever corner of the world we live, however expansive or small, our particular life space is to safeguard the beliefs that allow continuous human flowering and the freedom to self-determination. So, Helen, the way that I've been talking about faith this morning so far has included these questions. What do you hold dear? What holds you? When you stand on the edge of fear and courage, what propels you forward? How do we navigate the gap between what is uncertain and what is certain? What does an active faith require of us? What beliefs really matter? I think that such questions are essential to our time and our own understanding of how faith actually operates within our day-to-day lives. Now, of course, I recognize that the word faith is problematic for some. It's not surprising that for many of us who've left a religion with certain beliefs, that when we no longer hold those beliefs, that we say we lost our faith. But as I mentioned in last week's e-blast, when I was giving a talk at a workshop with a few hundred people in the room, and I used the word faith, this one man stood up and said, "We're Unitarian Universalists. We don't have faith." I've learned to control my face muscles, my immediate reactions. I was able to look at him with an understanding, compassion, and understanding. Because I know what journey he was referring to, but I think his understanding of faith was too limited by that previous journey. A woman in our congregation said to me last week, "I don't want to hand over all the religious words for the religious right to define." I appreciate what she was saying, because if we give the religious right a monopoly on defining words like faith, we also give up our own creative capacities for religion making, for reconstructing new, relevant meanings for familiar words that can still hold new and powerful meanings for us. So let's hold one another during this time. Let's cultivate within each other and within ourselves that sense of being able to move forward in spite of what is happening. Let's cultivate among ourselves those beliefs that matter because they open up vistas and possibilities before us rather than limit us or limit the possibilities of others. That is our religious task in this moment, to be a people of faith that indeed can see what cannot yet be seen, can hope even when there's no evidence for hope, but can stand sturdy and strong as an understanding that we can participate in creating a world in which more people can believe in hope and more people can trust. So may it be.
Faith of the larger liberty, so
As usual, at this point in our service every Sunday, we ask you to make a contribution to support the ongoing life of our ministry, of our congregation. On the side of your screen, you will see the 4 ways you can give. Those of you here in person in the church can leave a check or cash in the box at the back of the church. You all could mail a check to the church at the Halsted Street address, or go online to firstuuwilm.org and click on the donation page, or use the Vantage Mobile Faith Engagement app and make your donation. Please join me now in dedicating our offering to the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action. We dedicate our lives and these our offerings. Now, we are just past the midpoint in this year's stewardship pledging campaign, Giving with Intention. First, a big thank you to all of you who have already registered your pledge. Gone online, click those links that take you to the pledging form, made your commitment. And we all thank you and appreciate your rapid response. This morning, we have a testimonial from Nancy and Paul Pinson, who will share their passion and commitment to our church. Following their comments, you'll see a slide.
Paul and Nancy Pinson here for a stewardship moment. Our vision is that
Okay, following their comments, thank you. You will see a slide that will show you how to make your pledge. And now, here are Nancy and Paul.
Paul and Nancy Pinson here for a stewardship moment. Our vision is that our church is a launching pad for personal and spiritual renewal, where learning about and from our differences is what makes us whole and prepares us to do the work we must do in the world, where we are intentionally inclusive because we don't know any other way to be. Having taught in religious education and our whole lives has made us appreciate the Unitarian Universalist approach of giving our children honest information and allowing them the freedom to develop their own beliefs. Just as many of us sought out this congregation to gain freedom of beliefs. Leading and participating in small groups has helped us and others in our search for truth and meaning. Our experience working with the YWCA and UUSC has helped us understand the differences we make locally and in the world. Serving on committees and on the Board of Trustees has helped us understand what it takes to sustain a vital congregation, a place that needs us as much as we need it.
When Paul and I were reflecting on our relationship with First Unitarian over 30 years ago, we had just moved back from places where we didn't have a UU church nearby and were keenly aware of what we had missed. We were raising our children, both working, paying for daycare, stretching to pay for our home, and saving for college. Time and money seemed tight. We were contributing to our church the best we knew how, after everything else. We recognized then that our support didn't match the difference First Unitarian made in our lives and the lives of our children. It was here that our children found their voices and developed their beliefs. In that moment, our relationship with money and our faith was forever transformed. Starting then and still true, our church and other causes that reflect our values in action moved to the top of our priority list in our financial plan. We discovered there was always enough, both time and money. We all have the freedom to direct the flow of what we have: time, energy, creativity, compassion, and money to make a difference in the world. This intentionally inclusive faith community has transformed the lives of generations, and it is our hope it will continue to do so for generations to come. Please consider the impact First Unitarian has made in your lives and give with intention as generously as you are able.
Yeah.
So, to pledge, visit our website, firstuuwilm.org. And hold on, there's a journey that you take. First, you click Connect and Give. Then you click Financial Support. And finally, you click Giving with Intention. That should be a dance, don't you think? So you can either pledge online, or you can print a paper form. You can deliver or mail the paper form to the church office. There are no problems greater than our power to solve them. There are no burdens greater than our strength. We shape by every moment of our lives the great decisions. Then let us venture still, with reason as a lamp to guide us, but lighted with the light of faith.
If you have lit a chalice at home, I invite you now to extinguish it while I say these words by Melissa Jeter. Growing out of our comfort. We extinguish this chalice today, but we are illuminated by a faith that allows us to sit and think. In this quiet time, we can reflect in solitude, meditating on love and growing out of our comfort. Though we experience discomfort, we are excited to give birth to a new, just world.